Here are three things that you need to know to start off this Monday morning and this new trading week. Investors, they're set to take in a slew of economic data this week, including consumer and producer price indexes, as well as retail sales data. Now, headline CPI is expected to simmer down from last month, but it still remains historically elevated here. The key thing is this is what the Fed looks at as its best measure to really get a sense of where consumers are being impacted over the course of some of their policy decisions that they've been making. And it's still, for the cost of food, rent, housing, all of that is still high comparatively for consumers who are continuing to really look through the necessity spending that they're doing. And it's a larger question of when that will start to tick down. However, this could potentially be the first month where we see a decline since, get this, the pre-pandemic or the pandemic onset, basically.
So much for the T word. I guess headline inflation expected to tick down a bit and core is expected to tick up a bit. We are still well above the 2% inflation target that the Federal Reserve has in mind. So we're not going to see a big pivot anytime soon. But I think what traders are hoping for is a mini shift in the narrative. So if we come up with a CPI that's materially weaker than the street thought, or even that comes in line with still ticking down, going in the right direction, I think that could help some things. I would bring up the fact this is options expiration week. We still do not have a major catalyst to suggest that Wall Street should be positioning for something else. That's going to come with CPI, I believe, tomorrow. So until then, I think this is a kind of one-off because there's a lot of potential movement to the upside, to the downside. Still very illiquid, still don't have that catalyst. So in the meantime, I guess kind of a throwaway for the next 24 hours.
Well, what's interesting is even though CPI is important, to the point that you guys are making, it doesn't seem like it's going to change the Fed trajectory. The Fed has put the message out there, and Wall Street banks have gotten that message that it's going to be 75 basis points at this meeting on September 20th and 21st. So even if CPI might let us know there's a little bit of relief for us, the consumers, it's not necessarily going to change the Fed. So that's thing one. Thing two is, to your point about us being in this sort of in-between period right now, Jared, we're before the Fed meeting and the confirmation of that 75 basis points. We're pre-earnings season where we're really going to get more catalysts on that front. So we're in this sort of rudderless period of time. And by the way, the outlook for the earnings season ain't great. I know we've been saying that going into the past few earnings seasons, and things tend to turn out better than expected. But still, we've got analysts that have been cutting their estimates for third quarter growth by 5.5 percentage points. That's since the end of June, according to FactSet. So there's definitely, we're sort of drifting here with a little pessimism, it seems, laid on top.
You know, even for what the Fed may not be looking as much at with PPI, this is going to be an interesting piece of economic data to track as well, because if you do see some of those producer prices start to come down, where does that start to trickle through to the consumer prices as well, the prices that we're paying for some of these goods and services? And I think consumers would be happy to see that pull back in tandem with some of the pricing that producers are seeing for their own ability to actually manufacture and bring to light or bring to market some of the goods and services. So as long as that starts to pull back, I think consumers are going to be looking at where that is also going to kind of be a tailwind perhaps that they can perhaps benefit from in the future. But it's going to be a long time.
Discounting.
Discounting.
Aim of the game.
Heavy promotion.
We're already getting a little bit of benefit from that, aren't we? Yes, indeed.